Hi all, welcome to another episode of Data Never Lie, a video podcast for analytics boosters, a place where we talk about data, analytics, and marketing. Today, I'm honored and pleasured to have with us Julius Fedorovicious. I hope I pronounce it correctly.
Good enough.
Okay. He is the founder of the biggest world community about GTM and Google Analytics, now Google Analytics 4. And I think my definition of Julius is the analytics Wikipedia named Analytics Mania.
Very flattering, probably too much, but okay, thank you very much.
Julius started as the GTM and GA guy at Omnisend, and from 2019 he works at his own project at Analytics Mania.
Yep.
So welcome to Data Never Lies, Julius. And starting with the questions. First of all is, could you please give us an idea of the state of art of analytics world right now?
In this case, I would say, there are different perspectives from which you can look at the situation in the industry, and I'll try to give my own perspective. So there are I would say the first one, which is still continuing to grow, and I think that's a good thing, is like consent and privacy. Because it's not a new thing. When GDPR kicked in 2018, that was kind of the first kick in the ass to the industry, and then some companies started already doing that. Then we get more and more fines. Not we, but some companies. Yep. So maybe that will be another kick, because not all businesses are responsible. Not responsible, but let's say they don't look at privacy as they should. So this is one thing. Then another thing related to that is how different browsers are looking at and how they interpret the privacy, or maybe they try to employ the concept of privacy for their own gains, say Apple ITP and all that stuff. Of course, privacy, but also one of the marketing selling points in this case. So we have this this situation in our industry, and what does it mean is that we lose more and more data, which is natural. It's still possible to see, you don't have to do with 100% accuracy. It's still possible to see trends and patterns to take some data-driven decisions. But because of that, because of how data is missing, then we have some companies try to employ solutions to fill in those gaps. Consent mode, even though it's in the gray area, speaking up from the legal perspective and all of that stuff. But basically, some companies try to employ AI, machine learning, all that stuff. So it kind of gives more opportunities, because right now the industry, I would say, is trying to become a bit more mature, because of the privacy, the browsers, some other things, they create new challenges, so the companies need to solve them, and more companies try to adapt that. The problem with that is that there are big companies, advanced companies, enterprises, they can have a budget for that.
Sure.
And there are also small companies which don't have the knowledge, they don't have the budget. So GA4 tries to I'm coming from the Google camp in this case, so I'm kind of biased, but Google tries to fill in those gaps and democratize probably that machine learning stuff, and give some fill in some gaps with the data, but you still need to take this with a grain of salt, because you don't know how this black box inside GA4, how it actually generates the data. So we have more we have changes with privacy. We have more challenges technically. Then some new solutions appear to fix those challenges. But then what this means is that the entry level for newcomers, for beginners who just want to try start working with analytics, it becomes more difficult, because they need to learn more things. Sure. I remember when I started, it was 10, 20, 12 years ago, maybe like that. So it was fairly simple. You just open analytics, universal analytics. No, it was classic analytics, so it was before that. And you just browse, and then you have no idea what's happening, but it's you become curious, then you learn. So that's how I started. But right now, the learning curve becomes much steeper, so the entry point for beginners becomes more difficult, and that's where I hope that the next challenge that will be solved is how to help, how to not leave those beginners behind. Because right now you can do a lot of things. I remember 10 years ago or 5 years ago when I was I wasn't hearing the word BigQuery or Google Cloud Platform in my surroundings at all. Right now, you can hear that on every corner.
Sure.
But like, what about those beginners who are just like starting? Like, they will be overwhelmed. They just like want to see some basic stuff. So this kind of opens a new market or new opportunities for alternatives. I mean, again, I'm coming from Google camp, so like Google still is the biggest player, but right now people have more options. Like if you don't like GA4, you can try to use something else, and based on your needs. If you just want to see page views, then whatever, you can install some, some cheap or I don't know, some basic tool.
Alternative, name it.
Alternative, yeah, exactly, alternative. Pwig has a free plan. Matomo, I don't know, maybe like, again, I haven't discovered that yet, but it's still like on my to-do list to just play around, but there are just other priorities, namely GA4 changing things constantly that I have to update my stuff. But yeah, but basically I would say, right now it's like more possibilities, more options, but also more complicated things for beginners to enter the market to just start becoming something because they can easily get overwhelmed.
Yeah, you touched 2 points that I want to, if you can go more further related to, the first one is how can artificial intelligence, because it's everywhere at the moment, can help analytics people or analytics tool in the market. And the second one is, what do you suggest to a new guy that want to enter to the world of analytics or analytics marketing? What they have to study or starting from?
All right, so the first part was about AI in general. So I would say there are some good signs. Like if you're afraid that you will be replaced by AI within the next 2 years, I would say calm down. That's like still not happening. But there are some, I would say, some promising things, but there's still like long road to go. So I would say probably what I wish would happen probably eventually, that right now there might be actually maybe even some third-party tools that already doing that. But basically, I would like, for example, that right now people are struggling again in the GA4 context to build reports. Yeah. What it would be nice, even though it's some AI stuff or machine learning, I don't know what's exactly, they're kind of using that in the background to fill in the data. But what I would like is that it could be something like with ChatGPT or like Bard, where you basically have some chat-like conversation, where you ask something like to build a simple report, or maybe not so simple report, and then that AI companion in the tool could kind of show you that data, that table, and generate it for you. So you don't need to learn the ins and outs of actual like report configuration, but you could basically maybe learn more about prompting in this case. You just ask something and then it gives you, or it may be even better, you prompt it, it gives you the report, but then if you want, you can tweak the actual settings of the report. That would be really nice. I would hope that could eventually happen. I definitely see the potential for that, but right now, like, we are not there yet. And I would say, people will not be soon replaced by analysts, because like if you're doing your job very well, as an analyst, you know a lot of context, like a lot of things about the business, or at least you should know. You should know what's important for the business, how they operate, like have different processes and so on, and that gives you more context, at least right now, because let's say your analytics tool, if it's not like very deeply integrated in your company, it will know just one thing, like one silo of the data, let's say how your website operates, and it tracks your visitors and so on, but it will not know, let's say, something about your offline activities or something like that. So having, being an analyst, basically, the ideal couple here would be analyst who has an AI companion, and then they team up, and basically you use them. It might give you some context, some data, but then you know more about the company, and then you can probably fill in the gap. Now, speaking of the beginners in this case, as I've said, as I touched before, I would say the entry level right now is more difficult, because 10 years ago it was like, you install analytics, Tag Manager was a new thing, so you do something like that, you hopefully track goals, purchases, and you can already do something. Right now you can still do this, but there are like more things that you might need to learn. So if someone is trying just to considering to enter the market as a specialist, so they might have Googled or have seen different terms, different platforms that they might need to learn. You have SQL, Python, GA4, Looker Studio, BigQuery, all that stuff. So I would say, this sounds very overwhelming. So my idea, my suggestion would be, don't get overwhelmed. Don't try to learn everything in theory, because if you are new to this, you might take some courses and then you learn this, and then what will happen is that if you don't apply this in practice immediately, you will forget it. That's how for example, I used to learn. I complete the course, even though I don't need it right now, I think I will need it in the future. And then when that feature comes, I forget what I learned in the course. So I would say learn as you need. That's why you should start simple. If you're thinking about web analytics, learn, again, I'm biased because that's what I teach, GTM and GA4 or whatever. It can be alternative. It's not necessarily GA4, but basically some web tracking tool, and then Google Tag Manager, or just adding some basic code, and then track the most important events, but just let's see, focus on them. Don't track everything that you can or that comes to your mind. Let's say if you're working with e-commerce business, maybe you're hired because that company is very new, and maybe you have to figure that out. For e-commerce, track purchases and when someone subscribes to your newsletter, mailing list, something like that. Two most important things at the basic level for the business. So you have traffic sources, you have some data, events, page views, purchases, and let's say newsletter subscriptions. And then you can already kind of start working with that. Then when you start noticing the limitations of the tool, maybe you need something for reporting, then you can add on demand, because your situation says that you need that, then maybe Looker Studio. You learn that. You basically don't try to build a super system, let's say your analytics system, from the ground up if you don't have the experience, because you will be overwhelmed. So better start basic. So let's say analytics tool, let's say tag manager tool, whatever. Then if you need more eventually, then you add that additional layer. So regularly, let's say, adapt to what you need, and then you will not get overwhelmed. Because when you actually need Looker Studio, you take some Looker Studio course or blogs or YouTube videos, whatever, but then you have a real problem that you want to solve, and then your learning will be much, much better because you actually solve that solution. And sometimes you might need to read 5 blog posts, combine that knowledge,
sure,
and then you will remember that solution because you are actually working with it, so it will remind you that you will not forget that knowledge. So I would say learn as you need, not what is potentially needed for the work.
Sure. Great suggestion, because we need to stay focused on few things at the moment, because we have a lot of things, as you said a few minutes ago. So the main important question, could you tell more about Analytics Mania and where we can find you on web?
Yeah, so you can find me on 2 main places. So analyticsmania.com, that's my blog. That's where I shared my text content, we can call it like that. And then there's also a YouTube channel. So I should reach 100,000 subscribers very soon in this case. So if you want to learn right now mainly GA4 and Google Tag Manager, that is the place where you can come and find me. And also I offer GA4 and GTM courses at the same analyticsmania.com.
Okay. Guys, follow this man, because he has a great content inside the website, and the courses are a great addition for your learning curve and something like that. So thank you so much for being here, and stay tuned for the next episode of Data Never Lies. See ya. Perfect.